Serious, when did COVID-19 get real for you? When my first patient tested positive and I realized I had been in that room without PPE. When my who does not panic, stays calm in all situations, came home with a big bag of flour and rice. When in the space of an hour, Tom Hanks announced he had it, that made me go, oh. Today, when the government announced they're going to start putting the dead in a skating rink inside a local shopping mall because the local funeral homes don't have any more capacity. When my friend in Paris messaged me that France had shut down. French here. My mother works at the hospital, and until 2 weeks ago, she only thought of it as a big case of flu. I was kinda worrying. I ride the train and the sub each day to go to work, but she was really reassuring. I was worrying because it is my first adult pandemic. I was only 16 when H1N1 happened. Then, Wednesday of the week before, she called me. In her hospital, 3 wings had been closed to leave beds vacant in order to anticipate the sick people. 2 of her colleagues had it, including her direct chef. All of the vacations she had taken for April were deleted, and was requisitioned to work. She told me to stop, take the train, work from home, and stay away from people, that if I ever catch it, it could be possible that the hospital wouldn't have enough place, and that they can't have masks. When the president called for the confinement, be sure I respected it with absolutely no condition. I know I will be safe, I have enough food and TP at home, and I have plenty of things to do, work, read, play. But my parents, they have been both heavy smokers for 40+ years. Mom is 60, Dad is 59, and my mom is in the first lines. I am not ready for this. When I found out both me and my husband are likely to get activated National Guard and we will have to send our 4-year-old daughter across the country to stay with family. Update. My husband went to in processing this morning at his unit. He explained the circumstances. His contract ends next month, but they still planned on having him in process. Which, hey, whatever. If they need us, they need us. Our daughter had a fever last week, which they also knew about. She's fine now, but once my husband got there they decided it was too much of a risk to use him in the off chance it was the coronavirus. It kinda sucks he drove out of state to his unit to immediately get sent home, but it's also a huge weight lifted from our shoulders for now. When the Chinese government was snatching people off the streets who refused to self-isolate while they were sick, that was real enough to me to know this was serious. When I realized I should not be able to go home and see my elderly parents, one of which recently got diagnosed with cancer. When we were pulled in by management and told that all non-essential research was stopped. COVID-19 research would be started in the next 2 weeks, and asked to fill out a form detailing our full range of expertise for potential redeployment. It was quite a stark wake-up call 2 weeks ago. When I was on Nextdoor and saw that people are posting which grocery stores have food, I wasn't blind to anything. I was taking it seriously and all. But that was the moment where I realized, holy shit, we are currently in a world where people have to post which grocery stores have food. When I went grocery shopping for the first time in several days last week, and many of the shelves were completely empty. When China built the huge hospital in 1 week. About a month or so ago, when my hospital converted a ward into a negative pressure unit in anticipation of our first patient from one of the cruise ships. We're still changing related procedures and protocols almost daily and prepping other wards to accept patients with pending tests. My dad has it. I just found out today. I'm 1,700 km away and I'm afraid I'm never going to see him again. When my boss told me that I will be working from home for 8 to 12 weeks. Yes, I could have been laid off. The question was when it got real, not what's the worst things to come from it, though. This is pretty bad for me, as I have treatment-resistant depression that I manage by staying active and busy. When I was told by the administration that we had 1 box of N95 masks in the hospital. I work in a boarding school with a lot of international students. It got real around when Madrid announced they were closing the airports. There was a panic packing where we shoved everything the Spanish kids owned into suitcases and put them on the last flight back home. And then it happened again with the Danish kids. Then Kazakhstani, Ukraine, Germany, France. When the school officially got closed on Friday, we had 25 out of our 145 students, and 12 of our 55 staff members, left in the building. As of today, the UK is in lockdown, so now it's really real. It's been real for me since hearing about Italy locking down, because I've been in shortage situations before, namely Hurricane Katrina, but it got really real when I found out the guy across from me tested positive, and I was on the elevator with him last Monday, so that kinda blows. He's fine, thankfully, just in self-quarantine, but now with the pollen coming out and all, every little sniffle and scratch I feel in my throat has me convinced I'm getting the damn thing. When my colleague died, she was the first COVID-19 death in our state. I had seen her a few weeks ago and she was doing great, and then I received a company-wide email that she had passed. My girlfriend is a wildlife virologist. When she started constantly reading articles during her free time, maybe mid-February or so, I realized it was the real deal. When cases popped up a few miles from my elderly, immune-compromised father's home, I started being truly scared for him and others. Driving during rush hour and having the freeway to myself. When I realized that if my mother, who is 70 but generally healthy, falls ill, I can't get to her because that would involve air travel. I have worked in investigations, security for 8 years and was always told we can never work from home. Reason being we have access to millions of individuals' sensitive data and they didn't want to risk it being stolen. 2 weeks ago they bought hundreds of laptops and sent us all home to work. When colleges and K-12 schools closed, that's not a light decision and the people making those calls are very educated. I immediately knew things were about to hit the fan. When Ireland closed the pubs shortly before St. Patrick's Day. Honestly, when the death toll in China surpassed SARS. I'm kind of an anxious person anyway, but infectious diseases have always scared me because there's no real control over who lives and dies. Other than my sister, my immediate family acted like I was crazy and overreacting. When I told my friend that I had been buying a little extra each grocery trip, she thought I was being ridiculous. She's a nurse and recently told me how real it is to her now. When I realized that having a bottle of hand sanitizer in my car, in plain view, might not be a good idea. When Walmart stopped being open 24/7. When the whole country of Italy was put on lockdown, that should have been a wake-up call for the world to take it deadly serious. My cousin got sick, was admitted to the ICU, and tested positive for it. He's been out of the hospital for a few days but hasn't really improved. He just hasn't gotten worse. I texted with him a bit and it's still really serious. He has asthma as well. I guess it was only a matter of time before it affected somebody I know. Last Monday, when a coworker was diagnosed with it. I work at UPS, which is deemed essential. The last couple of weeks have rivaled peak season in the amount of work each day. A lot of older people work there as it's part-time and free health coverage. We have no PPE, none. I haven't seen any type of disinfectant in any of the areas. Management seems fine with it, and was offended that I asked what was the plan of action weeks ago prior to Mrs. A's diagnosis. I heard from it the first time when people started dying in China, paid more attention when people started dying closer to home, got real when Europe went full lockdown mode, went to steroids when I lost my job. When I lost my job. Just heard that the company that sews MLB uniforms is bringing back their workers to start making surgical gowns. This is starting to sound like the factory conversions to war production during World War II. This is starting to sound like the factory conversions to war production during World War II. It's already happening. Volkswagen is building ventilators, as are Ford, GM, Nissan, and Ferrari. At least this time we're fighting a common enemy rather than each other. We own a small business, 3 days ago the government ordered us to shut down. We had to let go all of our employees, including 3 senior citizens who depended on their checks for their livelihood. We have some savings but not nearly enough to continue to live and maintain the business afloat. The state is not offering enough help for us. We are really in a tough situation. Our employees are also in the same boat. 30-year-old employee who has nobody. She lives by herself and most likely will get evicted, as her landlord is an asshole. Her situation is desperate. This is so sad and so crazy. All of our hard work is going down the drain in 3 weeks. My first shift at the hospital after 9 days off and seeing how absolutely unprepared we were to deal with what's coming. For example, 2 nurses were allowed to come back to work after flying home from a cruise, in early March. They pulled both of them and sent them into quarantine, but not until they received a call from the cruise line that 2 passengers so far had tested positive. There was at least 2 people on our unit who were like 99% confirmed. They just hadn't been tested because neither met the criteria for testing in this state, having left the country recently or directly knowing someone who had. And now I'm in the middle of another 9-day stretch off, having had what feel like a chest cold for going on 3 or 4 days now, knowing I need to check in for a virtual health consult and wondering if they'll be footing the bill if I'm told to take 2 weeks off.